Hey everyone, this is Scott from Forgot to Grow. Well, welcome to our latest ReWatch, ReVisit review, our video series where I rewatch a movie I haven't seen in a while, talk about my thoughts after revisiting it, and then give you guys mine as well as the critic and audience review for the movie. So this week I'm going to be talking about Star Trek Generations, the 7th Star Trek movie, and this one has Patrick Stewart and William Shatner in it, and this one we see that Picard has to stop this guy who's trying to blow up the whole solar system just so he can get back into the space matrix or space heaven, or that's pretty much what it is. So I just finished rewatching this one, and this one I have not seen in probably at least a decade since I was in high school. It's not as long as some of the other Star Trek movies, but this one definitely has been a little while. And it has nothing really to do with the movie itself. It's just there's so much that comes out. It's so hard to rewatch everything. But yeah, I decided to rewatch this one in particular because it's got Picard in it, and the Picard series just started. So I felt like I gotta wait a week before another episode comes out, so I might as well catch up on, or not catch up, but rewatch these his at least motion pictures. I don't have time to watch all of Next Generation, so I figured why not at least check out I believe it's just the 4. He's just in 4 Star Trek movies, Captain Picard. So yeah, I'm rewatching each of them, and Generations is the first one he popped up in, so I'm missing something. But yeah, so like I said, this one kind of takes place with having both captains. We see at the very beginning, we see the death of James Kirk, or Captain Kirk in this one, and that's something I always forget that happened in this one. I don't know, for some reason in my head canon, James Kirk just never died in Star Trek, which just doesn't make any actual sense. So rewatching this was a kind of like a nice little kind of refresher that I was like, oh yeah, this is technically the movie where he dies twice. Yes and no. Like, everyone thinks he dies in his timeline, and he actually ends up in the space matrix that the one guy's trying to get into, and then at the end of this one he realizes he's been in the space matrix for 80 years and comes out to help Picard, and then dies in doing that, and that's where he ends up dying. So that'd just be a very confusing tombstone to try and write. An obituary. But that being said, it was just kind of funny to think that I somehow missed or didn't make any kind of connection between the fact that this is the one where Kirk dies. So that was kind of I don't want to say fun, but at least amusing to me that I forgot that kind of pretty significant thing in this movie before having rewatched it. So that was kind of interesting for me to rediscover. But overall, yes, I really enjoyed this movie, or this rewatch of this movie. For me, it was just it is that kind of nostalgia feel and the fun of just, this feels like classic Star Trek to me, at least, very Next Generation-esque. It feels like, yeah, they could have pulled this right out of the, out of a season of it, and this was just like a crossover episode they did, and in TV nowadays, it would have just been. So I just had kind of fun revisiting it for the kind of classic Star Trekness, and having a kind of fun visit of how they used to do a crossover, and so that was kind of fun. There's another thing that was fun about revisiting this, besides just picking up on the fact that Kirk dies in this one and just not having remembered that before. It was just kind of fun to pick up on a few other things, like how this kind of the timeline difference between the original the original series and Next Generation. That's something I'm always blanking on. Again, I'm just so bad at keeping track of the Star Trek timeline in any real way, and particularly with the different shows and knowing when each of them take place versus or in timeline with the movies and how it all fits, and that's just really tough for me to keep up with it. But I do it was interesting to kind of be picking up on these things upon this rewatch, and that I hadn't picked up on previous watches, so that was interesting. My review definitely of this movie comes in a lot different than what the critics and audiences thought, which, granted, this is an older movie. This is from 94. Well, not that old, but old when you're talking about Rotten Tomatoes score, in that if it came out before Rotten Tomatoes was a thing, the score for it tends to be a little hit or miss, because it doesn't have as many critic or audience ratings, because not as many people are going back and rating these ones that have come out previously as are rating things that come out today. So that being said, the Rotten Tomatoes score for this, the critics give it a 47%, and I think that was 50 critics that give it that percent. I was like, oh, wow, you guys yeah, like, and the critics said that this just felt like it was kind of boring, and it felt like just a, an extended version of a Star Trek episode. And I'm like, well, okay, how's that a negative thing about a Star Trek movie? But and then I was seeing the audience score was only a 57% on Rotten Tomatoes, and again, like I said, this is because not as many people are going back and rating these things. But even then, I was still like, oh, okay, I guess this isn't, this isn't particularly loved among fans, in particular, because diehard fans will go back and probably rate this and try and bump it up for those people, but it doesn't seem like anybody is really pushing for this one. So, like, me personally, I would rate it higher than both the audience and critics, but that could also be my own bias based off of, like, the nostalgia of Star Trek and stuff like that. But I still thought it was kind of a fun, just, I want to say run of the mill, but your kind of standard sci-fi, adventure. Yes, it is classic Star Trek kind of adventure, where you got like this mission. It's not heavy on them trying to have to, fight a battle or anything. It's more about, them having to solve, I don't want to say solve a problem, but stop a problem from going on. And it is necessarily about who's got the biggest guns. It's about them figuring it out. So I like that, like particularly like with the final kind of thing with its being Picard versus the scientist guy, with the help of Kirk. So I like that it wasn't this whole big giant thing. It was a little bit more contained, but it still had these big ramifications of the whole solar system will blow up if Picard doesn't stop him. So that being said, like I said, I think I rated it a little bit higher than the audience and critics ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. But then again, you can't 100% take these things, for the older the movie is, the less blah 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 blah. But yeah, that's being said, that's pretty much all my thoughts on my rewatch revisit review of Star Trek Generations. Be sure to join me for my other rewatch revisit reviews of the other Star Trek movies. I'll be sure to link those at the end of this video in the description below and in the card thing, and you can check out more of those if you'd like. But yes, thanks again for joining me today. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and have a good one.